Andy, you want to mute maybe?
Yes.
Greetings, you've landed at the VUC, IP Communications and VoIP community. We would like to thank Simwood.com for their support. Simwood can turn you as a developer into a telco. Our hosted PBX is from onsip.com, and you can go to getonsip.com for a URL people can click to call you. We've been privileged over the last 5 years to be using the best conference bridge on the planet. Yes, I'm talking about zipdx.com, full color, full featured, full HD conference bridge. Our website, vuc.me on the web's hosted by bluehost.com. And our worldwide local rate dial-ins are from voxbone.com.
All right, everybody, here we are.
Are we? Because we weren't hearing anything.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're here. Let's do this, guy. This is 517. I'm sorry.
So we did the roll because I think I see it on.
We did the roll. It's good.
Okay, great. Hey, this new session is going to be about Matrix. You can go look at that at matrix.org. This is quite an event. There are a cast of thousands out there on IRC. IRC is the VUC channel on freenode.net. So first of all, let's greet Matthew Hodgson, who's with us. Matthew, hello.
Hi there. Good to see you all.
Great to see you. And the connection was made by Tim Panton, who's also here. I don't know if he's ready to say hello. Tim, if you unmute yourself. Yeah, he's just waving. Okay, good.
Hello.
Hello, Tim. The pre-roll was done by Michael Graves, who's doing a lot of all kinds of video work that we could not function without. Andy is here. I'm not sure what he does, but something. And oh, you can't even see me. Let me unblur the title. I'm terribly sorry. See, this is a little nerve-wracking here, talking about Matrix, and here I will be in just a second. As soon as the bridge, okay, and that's me. Theoretically, I would be visible. I have a little star. There's another person here. Would that be Mike? I can't see the fellow.
Yeah, that's Mike Jerris.
There's Mike Jerris and somebody else.
And Anthony.
Anthony's in the house. Great. Hello, Anthony. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Great. It's hard to see everybody because of the way this, well, just tell you the truth, because my monitor's a little too small. Anyway, we're going to start with a little tradition, which is to ask people how they even got into technology at all. And that would be a question for you, Matthew, because I've never met you before. We've spoken by email and all that. Just be interested in how you got into technology, and also, of course, how Matrix came to be, because you're a founder or co-founder of it.
Right. Wow. God, that's a big question.
Sure.
Yeah, so my background has been, I guess, quite technological. My father's electronics engineer working on military radios for Rakel, and I guess did the typical thing of bringing home a TRS-80 clone called a Dragon 32 when I was very small, and did lots of programming in BASIC. But then things got a lot more exciting because his work went and purchased 3 of the very first Silicon Graphics workstations. To be precise, they were all numbers 149, 150, and 151 of everything that Silicon Graphics ever bought. And that was quite influential. And then I wasted far too much of my childhood learning Iris GL, which eventually became OpenGL, programming in C, hacking on that sort of thing. And basically been playing with an unhealthy number of computers ever since. I collect some SGI machines after that. And I guess that's sort of the early story. The more recent one is after an interesting university career, which eventually converged on computer science. I ended up working for a company called MX Telecom in London, doing VoIP and video interactive TV. That was about 12 years ago now. And throughout the years, we've gone through various different iterations of technology. And the most exciting one has been this year, when we've been sponsored by our parent company, because we got acquired, which is Amdocs, to go and work on Matrix as an open source project. So nowadays I look after a team of about 15, 16 people inside Amdocs. and sponsoring us to work on matrix.org as a non-profit entity, as a completely open source kind of Mozilla or Apache style attempt to go and help build a new VoIP and instant messaging ecosystem for the internet. So a bit waffly, but hopefully that gives you some idea.
That's a good list of that's a good list of things you've been up to in the last few years. Excellent. Because I was going to ask about the number of people involved. I had the impression that there were a few. Do you know? We're hearing some weird noises of people connecting. Maybe do you know? Because we've been talking for the last 2-3 days about different ways to bridge. In your awareness, what is bridge to what through IRC? Whoever is doing that noise, if we could get rid of that, that'd be great. It's probably, I suspect, FreeSWITCH, but don't tell them. Something to do with announced callers jumping onto their bridge, maybe. So Ken, if you're listening, if you
that's what it is.
good guess. If one of you guys could kill that. Where was I now? See what happens when you get old and you're interrupted by these funny noises of people.
So
the question was what is bridge to what, as far as you know, and then maybe we'll get some other people out of the woodwork to tell us. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the first thing that we did to bridge was the IRC back channel for #VUC on Freenode through to #VUC:/matrix.org, which is the Matrix chat room mirror of it, which is pretty exciting because Matrix, in the end, is a completely open federated messaging fabric, and that can be used for instant messaging or voice and video over IP or pretty much any kind of data. So you put JSON into it and it replicates everywhere. So we've done that with #VUC and got the chat room up and running in Matrix. And then on the voice and video side of things, on my side, we've had 2 separate projects going on in the last 48 hours. One of which is to bridge into the FreeSWITCH or via SIP into the overall conference from Matrix. And we're doing that by converting the Matrix VoIP signaling into Virto signaling. And that's using mod Virto on a FreeSWITCH, which is very kindly being hosted and arranged by TruePhone, which is then in turn dialing into the SIP-DX bridge, which is in turn somehow magically connected through to the Jitsi bridge. So there's that channel going on. And then separately, we also have a project on the video side, which is connecting the video calling side of Matrix into the Jitsi bridge. That isn't running at the moment, but we got it up as far as having a single stream, but not the multiple streams.
And that was something that's been worked on for like maybe at the most 48 hours. So
yeah, I think the decision to try to bridge it all together came a little bit late, perhaps, which is entirely my fault. And so we've been running around with our hair on fire. It's been a lot of fun building a Virto to Matrix bridge and comparing the 2 different JSON-based signaling protocols, and they have a lot of similarities and a lot of differences. And meanwhile, it's been a lot of fun getting the XMPP Bosch interface in place for the video too.
It was great that you and Anthony were talking when he came into IRC, and there was a little discussion going on there. And I've got to say, and this is not to pat me or everybody else in the VUC, the regulars on the back. But I think we deserve it because this is what we do. We bring people together, and I'm really pleased that worked out because my own entry into the VoIP world started with somebody telling me to read the fucking manual. So you can see that it's always nice when people get together and can talk civilly, right, James? He's going to nod.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anthony, you want to say a word about what's going on? Because you guys were talking about this, and there is a connection to FreeSWITCH. And of course, we've bridged FreeSWITCH in the communities a couple of times already. We should probably do it systematically, actually. Ken, hint, hint. Anthony, you want to say a word?
Well, we first learned about this whole thing Friday? No, Tuesday? I don't know. Whenever you invited me to here.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, what's that? And then we were like, oh, they're on IRC. Let's go talk to them. So we talked to them like 2 or 3 days ago. But other than that, then we had a holiday. So I'm just back from that, and I'm learning everything in real time right now, just like you.
That's fantastic, though.
Yeah.
Oops, apparently my upload speed just died, so I'll have to take a
Yeah.
look at that.
Don't
Let's
worry
go,
about it.
go ahead. Somebody else can take it because I.
Yeah, don't worry about that. You're still. Hang on. Am I talking? Yes, I am.
Yes.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Your video is still good. It's one of the indications of how fast this Matrix project is working. Matrix is only what, 2.5 months old?
Yeah, if that,
Yeah.
it's less than 2 months old. So we launched. Let me see. We launched in September, so yeah, actually we're about 2.5 months in now. But we got funded to work on it in May, and so all of the IP that we've open sourced and are now working on has been completely new since May. And given the scope of what we're trying to do, I mean, it's still quite early days. So Matrix is providing an open standard for federated messaging, I guess somewhat like XMPP and SIP, but it has some really major differences in that we are more considered about message history and also strong cryptography and identity mapping, so that well, I guess some of the things which weren't really on the radar of XMPP when it first came out and subsequently have been added as after for XCP extensions, we've tried to bake in from the beginning, especially the whole federated messaging idea for a sort of replicated message history. So in XMPP, where you've got a multi-user chat room, you effectively have a single point of failure. Obviously, there are extensions to that, so you can cluster them using the various clustering technologies that some of the servers have had, like OpenFire. And there are extensions like the federated muck, one that's come about, I think, through ISOD quite recently. We actually discovered it after working on Matrix. But in the end, it's sort of afterthoughts to work out how to have a message history that is replicated all over the place. So in Matrix, what we've done is that when you create a room in Matrix and you start putting JSON into it, and that could be messages or WebRTC setup or whatever it happens to be, that room is federated and replicated across all of the participating servers. So if you've got 20 people in the room and they're split over 5 servers, each server has a mirror of as much of the history of that room as is needed. So if there's a net split and some of those servers get separated off, then they can recover after the net split elegantly. The message history gets merged back together. And if they lose their data altogether, we can also recover it by synchronizing it in from the other participating servers. So, I mean, there are many different ways of trying to think of what we're trying to do, but one of them might be IMAP done right. Imagine IMAP where everybody is sitting in the same namespace and you're putting JSON in rather than email, or it could be NTP, it could be SMTP done right. Wouldn't it be nice if you could recover all of the emails you ever sent from the people you sent them to? Or XMPP reimagined or SIP reimagined. I mean, it's basically a fully distributed, eventually consistent, cryptographically signed JSON database with open federation, so anybody can jump in and start replicating data in and out of these rooms. So we hope it will be a new messaging fabric for the net, and I guess we'll have to see what happens.
Got it to work yet, and so this is a stunningly brave and enormous project to undertake. And you know what? I've got a really good feeling about this one. It reminds me of other stunningly brave projects like FreeSWITCH. It sounds a bit like FreeSWITCH in the early days, which was when it started out was such an amazingly, outrageously big thing to do. But Anthony pulled it off, and we have FreeSWITCH now, which is totally amazing. I've got a really, really good feeling about where Matrix is going to go. You only have to look at GitHub and see how the Matrix team are clocking in the commits. It's a project that is moving extremely quickly. So for that, Matthew, we applaud you and support you.
Well, thank you for the kind words, James. I guess that might count as a vote of endorsement. And honestly, it is a very ambitious thing we're doing. We're under no misapprehensions that it's a bit of a moonshot. It's going and trying to build a new ecosystem, and or really we will see what happens. XMPP is obviously very well respected and very established in this space. But as you say, federation, an open federation has been tried before and hasn't taken off. And there have been many instances of that. There's been the XMPP of the instant message wars. There's been SIP federation. There are other, even more, other protocols which have failed on it. So the question's really got to be whether this one will end up being like DNS or email or HTTP or any of those very successful federations, or whether it will end up being a bunch of VoIP geeks sitting on a VoIP users conference enthusing about distributed data structures.
Well, I have to say it's looking quite good at the moment. And you've got a really skillful core team. And how many people have you got working on this at the moment?
Yeah, it's about 15 people.
And these are not kind of random developers. This is a team that have been together for some time, knocking out revenue-generating applications for Amdocs. So they're professionals who know what they're doing, and I think you've done an amazing job convincing the management of Amdocs that they're going to support you through this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it wasn't easy to convince Amdocs to go down the corporate open source route, and especially do it as comprehensively as you need to do it for something like this to be successful. And then if you look at how other big multinationals have tried to do open source in that manner, you've ended up with, I guess, IBM doing quite a good job with Eclipse and spinning Eclipse off into its own software foundation. But then look at what Oracle has done perhaps over the years, and some of their open source projects have been influential, but it's always on a sort of smaller basis. And as the corporate priorities have shifted, then they've kind of gone back and forth a little bit. So we've been very keen to set up matrix.org as a separate legal entity with a non-profit charter to go and protect the intellectual property, the Apache licensed code and the Apache licensed standards that we've put out there, and really give it the best possible chance of independent success. So hopefully we've got a good balance between a funded, I guess almost incubated, funded organization to work on it. And the team's been together now, I guess, for 8 years. I think you can see Dave hiding down there in the list of folks there. He is waving. And poor Dave has been working with me for about 8 years now and still has survived. And so, I mean, it's matured team.
Yeah, you
hopefully
ought to go ahead and introduce Dave and Amandine to the.
That is impressive. I have a question, but let's go ahead and introduce the folks first.
Yeah, so I should introduce Amandine, who I think is hiding away down there somewhere. He's my co-founder on Matrix. Amandine is the common sense and provides all of the sort of business support to what we're doing, which is pretty critical, especially when we have the number of people we have working on it. Do you want to say hi, Amandine? I don't know if you...
Yeah, hi.
Bonjour, Amandine.
Bonjour à tous.
So I should mention that half of the team is based in London and half of the team is in Rennes in France. And so Amandine looks after the guys over in France, and I look after the guys here in London. And I guess if we're introducing folks, Dave, do you want to say hi too?
Hello. Sorry, yes, I just had to unmute. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, hello everybody. I'm in London on the dev team, as Matthew says. I've been with Matthew for about 8 years, and yeah, I'm now quite excited to be working on Matrix.
So Dave's been doing the Jitsi bridge stuff, which is almost working. It's good enough to get one of the video streams through, but the coming multi stuff that Emil and the Jitsi guys are doing there isn't quite integrated into Matrix yet, but I'm sure if we give them a few more hours, we might see something there.
Yeah, that's almost a cue for a live demo, isn't it?
Well, I have a question, 2 questions, James. The first is, Matthew, if we add up the hours of sleep that you got and the hours of sleep that Dave got in the last 48 hours, how many hours would that be?
I think I might have to defer to Dave on that one. my tracking devices aren't yet reporting telemetry into a Matrix and chat room to tell me when Dave sleeps and awakes, but obviously that's an extension of what we're hoping to do. But I don't want to think it's probably fingers of at least one hand, possibly not more than 2 though.
Okay. Anyway, there was a good question from Whitebook in IRC, which is how easy is it to set up Matrix server and what are the requirements? And I realize that you could probably say, well, you go to the website and look. But the point is, it's probably better to say it because people are listening.
Yep.
What kind of thing? What is the approach to this? How much knowledge do you need, and what's the basic setup for servers and things?
Okay, well, the first thing to understand is that Matrix is a standard primarily, rather than the implementations. Although I think it's fair to say that we're better at writing software than writing standards, and a standard exists, and we're busy going and polishing it up. But what we decided to do was to put out a reference implementation, which was intended to be as, I guess, easy for us to develop and to kick the tires of the spec and to rapidly iterate on what we were doing. And we chose to do it in Python, but that doesn't mean that Matrix is a Python project per se. It just happens to be that the first server happens to be implemented in Synapse, in Python. And that server is called Synapse, and you can get it from GitHub on github.com/matrix-org/synapse. And it should be now very easy to install. It has admittedly been a huge pain to install because of all of the crypto that we do. We need to rely on Dan Bernstein's NACL library. And unfortunately, the upstream Python package has had some installation issues, but I'm happy to say that one of the guys on the team, Mark, went and fixed this yesterday and provided a patch that they pulled in. And so as of yesterday, at last, it should be a one-liner to install via pip. Now that gives you a standalone instance of the server running. If you want to do the interesting stuff, you obviously want to federate with the rest of the internet. That means setting up an SRV record, much like XMPP, to advertise the HTTP listener that or the HTTPS listener, I should say, that you're exposing to the internet that people can use to go and federate with you on. And that obviously means setting up DNS. You can cheat and skip DNS and use the default port, but in practice, we see that most people want to set up an SRV, and that takes a little bit longer. But obviously, we want it to be as simple and straightforward as possible. But the reference implementation is young. As James says, we did our very first alpha release 2 and a bit months ago, and we actually went out of alpha and into beta last week. So we're now in very, very, very early beta stages. And this basically means that feature-wise, we are effectively complete. The only features we have missing at this point is client-side end-to-end crypto, although we do have crypto across the federation between the servers. And then also we need to define application server APIs to make it easier for people to go and extend Matrix with their own business logic. So for instance, the XMPP and the Virto gateways, which we built over the last few days, are effectively server-side functionality, but we've ended up implementing them for now as clients rather than servers because we don't have these application server APIs. But once we've formally specified that, it should be open season for people to start using Matrix as a persistent messaging fabric that can connect together all of the different silos and islands out there, be they SIP or XMPP or over-the-top applications, IMS, RCS, Internet of Things stuff. I mean, we really want it to be the simplest possible universal federated persistent messaging space.
So I've got a remark. I met Matthew, where are we, last week, and we chatted about this, and I was thinking about it, on and off since. And it strikes me that if you want to try and describe this from a non-VoIP perspective, what you're actually doing is something like a cross between the Bitcoin blockchain and diaspora. It's a sort of, multiple federated servers, but with a strong crypto overlay to try and keep the things consistent and to some extent authenticated where they've come from. And I think that's the thing I'm most curious about. How do you see the federation rules, that who's allowed to federate with who and who gets ejected from what, playing out in the longer term? Because I think that will actually define the success or failure of it as a community, and maybe not as a protocol.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because it's also a very topical one. We were arguing about precisely this yesterday, in fact. So we have completely open federation. So anybody, in theory, can try to join a room. And so there is no single point of control by design over any of these rooms. So it's not like an IRC network where you have an IRC operator who can come in and kick everybody out of the room, or go and close it down, or rename it, or start injecting spoofing events or anything like that. Instead, every server that is participating in the room goes and injects its own events, which are federated in a full mesh to the other servers. They are signed by the originating server so that you can see the identity of that server hasn't been spoofed. But in addition, as you say, we have this blockchain style. I mean, it's not blockchain at all, but it's a sort of conceptually similar idea that every message you send has a pointer to the previous message that you saw at the point that it was being sent. And that message is cryptographically signed, including that pointer, so that you have the integrity of the room cryptographically asserted by induction all the way back to square one. So you can keep on walking this graph, checking the hash, or the signature, I should say, of that message, and just keep on going backwards and backwards and backwards through to the very first event, if you so desire, to prove that room hasn't been tampered with. So that's in some ways the secret sauce of what we've done here by having this directed acyclic graph of messages, which is replicated across the servers, as you say, cryptographically signed both for identity and tamper resistance and censorship resistance, for that matter. But it's all very well doing this and creating this indestructible data structure that can't be killed because it's distributed over all these servers. But what if somebody does go and upload some really undesirable content into this and you really want to get rid of it? Well, there are many different approaches to this. One that we've implemented right now is called redactions. And it's a bit like the way that some email systems try to recall emails. In the end, it's a gentleman's agreement, but we obviously strongly mandate that in the spec that people actually uphold it. And the way it works is that you send out an event that redacts a previous event. But what we actually do when we sign the messages is not to sign directly the original contents, but instead we go and sign a hash of the original contents. So we can throw away the human readable original text and yet still assert the integrity of the graph, because our actual cryptographic signature was over the hash of the original contents rather than the plain text original contents. So it allows us to go and remove graphs, remove events and messages from the graph if we so desire, and if people choose to. But in the end, a home server in Matrix is what you choose to run, and if you choose to ignore event redactions, then your copy of the graph won't have the data redacted from it. So to go back to the original question of how IRC operator style permissions work, well, the first person who creates a room gets a privilege level, and we call them power levels, and it's an integer, typically from 0 to 100, with 100 being the highest, but we're not actually putting a cap on it other than a 32-bit integer currently. And the creator can go and assign permission to other people. So if you're familiar with how IRC services work, typically with a chan server arrangement, you have a pecking order of users, and we basically followed the same model. It's not as sophisticated as HATs in XMPP, where you can have arbitrary permissions on a matrix across all the users on a channel. Instead, it's just rank, basically. And the guy with the most power can kick everybody else, and you can set various thresholds in the room to say, what is the threshold at which I'm allowed to inject messages? What's the threshold at which I'm allowed to inject arbitrary state? And then more specific rules. And in fact, you can define your own rules as you so desire to go and define how the permission structure works. But what happens if the guy in charge gets hit by a bus, or he turns off his computer and is no longer in control? There is no longer a higher power that you can petition, like a IRC op, to come in and save the day. And we opened the bug for this yesterday. Off the top of my head, I think it's SYN 180 in Jira, if you can be bothered to look at it, follow along. And there were 4 different scenarios which we came up with, but all of them end up with the idea of having local administrators on a server. So for instance, on the matrix.org server, I can go and manipulate the contents, if I so desire, and assume privilege in rooms. But it will only affect my side of the vision, basically. So, sorry, long waffling answer again. Again, I think sleep deprivation is running strong here, but hopefully the answer is buried in there somewhere.
Yes, I think so. I suppose the kind of follow-on question is, do you have any vision as to how big a service, how big you think the service nodes are going to be? I mean, are we talking about, one per MVNO and so 6 per country, or are we thinking about 1 per house? Should I have it running on a Shiva plug in my house and federate with my neighbor? I'm assuming it's actually somewhere in between those two, but where do you think that might lie?
It's a very good question. I honestly don't know. Use case-wise, we've looked at everything from a very, very wide mesh where you would run a server on your Internet of Things embedded device. In fact, there's a really cool company called We.io who are providing an open hardware platform for Internet of Things, which happens to use Python, and they seem quite excited about the idea of running a home server on every one of their tiny little couple of dollar boards. On the other side, as you say, yeah, you could run a server on a tier 1 mobile network and have 100 million users on it as a logical cluster. And we've tried to design the system to work for both extremes. At either extreme, to be honest, you start hitting edge cases. So obviously there's a discovery problem and a retry problem on a really full mesh, as well as a routing problem, because you can't do full mesh routing over a huge mesh of lots and lots of different servers. You need to have much more intelligent ways to pass the state around. But then on the flip side, on a huge tier 1 network, you want it to have huge horizontal scalability. You want a big logical cluster. And that's, again, a problem that needs to be solved. But at the spec level, we have deliberately left the routing algorithms open for an expansion, and the horizontal scaling problem as an implementation detail. So hopefully we haven't designed out either extreme. I mean, the crazy vision here is unashamedly to try to build just a kind of hanging in limbo data storage space that people can use to put any kind of threaded conversational messaging and state, and possibly other data structures in the future.
James is clamoring for the live dangerous demo. What have we got here?
It's going to be very dangerous because we tried it approximately 5 seconds before going on air, and this, of course, had spontaneously died. But we can give it a go and see what happens.
Okay.
So you're going to share your screen, James, and we can jump in.
We depend on James for this. James, and you're muted, of course, as you know, maybe.
Okay, I'm now unmuted, and I'm going to share my screen on JVB, which is always good for a laugh. So there we go. So I'm now sharing. I'm going to switch to matrix view, and what we're seeing here is the IRC feed, but within matrix. So what we've managed to do here is
hang on there, James. Oh, there we go. Okay, it finally came up.
Yeah, so we federated together the matrix IRC and the normal IRC VUC feed, VUC IRC. So in fact, if somebody wants to send something in the normal IRC, it will pop up here in the matrix view. There we go. Thank you for that. Oh, and a picture as well. We're real people with real pictures. The great thing about Matrix is that everything is federated. So all the little avatars with the pictures, the binaries that you drop in there, they're all federated and spread around the place. Matthew, do you want to describe what we're doing here? Because you're probably better than me.
I mean, probably the best way to visualize what's going on is if you go and double click on one of the instant messages which are flying past there, you can actually pull up a debugging view to see the JSON which is underlining it. So there's bonjour,
there we go.
Randy, and you can see it's a fairly small chunk of JSON. We've got the ID of the room which has been posted into, which is an interesting thing because the room ID is opaque. It's this horrible, ugly thing beginning with an exclamation mark, but that's because there isn't a single global way to go and find these things in a federated world. So what we instead allow you to do is to add aliases to get at rooms. So hashvuc on matrix.org is the alias to get at this room via the matrix.org server. But you could also create other aliases on other servers to find different entry points into the same collaborative space, as it were. But that's the underlying opaque ID. We've got a type of the data, so we've got m.room.message, which describes the format of the content, and you can see there's a content key which has got in the end a message type with m.text, which could be it could be HTML, it could be an action, it could be a notice, and the body itself. And the namespacing here is Java style. So we've nicked the M prefix to describe the matrix kind of official sanctified events, but you can put any kind of JSON you like into here using your own Java style namespacing, like org.matrix.midi is what we use when we're persisting network MIDI into it. And at that point, it really has just become a generic data store. And you can see that user ID there is whoever sent the message.
Steely Glint. Okay. Thank you for that, Randy. Good budgie. So where are we going to go next, Matthew?
I think something that could be interesting, if I can, sorry for...
yeah, tell me, you tell me what to do and I'll do it.
So the reason we're puppeteering here is that my connection isn't apparently good enough to screencast properly. But I guess it makes for a slightly more collaborative demo. And given that we are, in fact, I should point out that we're federated.
Slightly more dangerous.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Bearing in mind that I'm actually hanging off a TruePhone Matrix server, not the main matrix.org server. So the view that you're seeing is actually being fed by, from up here, matrix.tp.mu, and tp.mu is a TruePhone server.
Precisely, and that was what I was going to say, that we have actually got a full federation here. And I hopped over to the TruePhone offices a few days ago, and it was a couple of, I guess, it was about half an hour to go and get it up and federated on a clean Ubuntu server VM there. And Synapse actually comes with a turn server, co-turn configured also to back the WebRTC side of things. So I guess we've got a choice. Either we can see whether WebRTC is working now, because I think the turn server's been having some problems, or we could go and look at the federation stuff in a bit more detail.
Or we can start a one-to-one chat. This is how you start up a one-to-one chat with somebody who's Oddvar. Is Oddvar Paul?
No, Oddvar is Oddvar. He's our project manager on the project. And hopefully, Oddvar, you're out there. And hey, guys, why not try to do a video call? This is where we find out whether he's looking along at his desk or whether...
okay, so this is truly dangerous. We could try and set up a video call to Oddvar. Here we go. Should we do it? Do it. See what happens.
Okay. Do it.
This is totally... Oh, can you hear the audio?
We can.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's ringing.
Oddvar's got a webcam on his computer or not? Let's find out.
It's connecting, and so this is setting up a WebRTC call. Again, it's federated, and you can probably see me up there, my little thing. Is it going to, bearing in mind that I'm already sending one video? Oh,
yeah, that would be a failure. I suspect there it could be that Oddvar doesn't have a camera installed. Let me just.
Well, let's try.
See what happens.
So we try calling you then.
Yeah, try from your side.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go. I'm now calling Matthew. So it's started up my video over here.
Yeah, and you can probably hear on my side but yeah, no, something frustratingly has gone comically wrong there. As you reflected at my side.
Well, that one. Okay, one last try. Who can I try and call? How about Michael in America? Should I try that?
Yeah.
Actually, I have no camera available to me at the moment.
Oh my God, that's horrible. We don't want to look at that one.
It's used in other paths, other ways. So.
Who can I call? I'm trying to. Have you got a find out? Let's press the button, see what happens. This is truly dangerous. Here we go. Come in, France. Come in, Rennes. Can I have the vote for the the votes from the French jury, please. Oh, it's looking good. Or not. It's ringing anyway. I love these live, unscripted, unrehearsed demos. Anything can happen.
But try hanging up and redialing.
Let's
Try-
see. Yeah, try hanging up. My connection is not very good
Or,
here.
hey, try me, James. I'm on a different computer than the one I'm on Jitsi. It's Randy.
Where are you?
Randy.
Yeah, well, I haven't got a Randy on my list.
Oh, are you in your
Hang
own?
on, let me.
You should. I'm logged in.
Yeah, well, hang on, I'll find
I'm not
you.
in. Well, do I have to be in a room or something?
Yeah,
I'm on the main page.
Yeah, I'm looking. You're here somewhere, aren't you, Dave? See, all these people are federated into the VUC.
Maybe I can call you.
So what we're
How do I
seeing
find
here.
you?
Well, I'm trying to show you at the moment. I'm looking for you.
Well, I'm on Matrix. I'm not on your box.
I've got your IRC persona here, but that's no good because I can't send you video on IRC.
It's also there on the Matrix persona as well.
I'm on the Matrix server, but I don't know what to do from there. Home settings.
Well, that's all far too difficult. Yeah, and it's worth explaining what's going on here. So what we've done is we've set up a VUC group on the Matrix. What we're seeing here is a mixture of people on IRC. So, for example, there's Ken Rice. If I click on Ken, unfortunately, the Matrix hasn't got a picture for Ken, which may or may not be a good thing. So if I start a chat with Ken now, sorry, I didn't mean that, Ken, if you're listening to this. You're a lovely chap. So I'm now connected to Ken, so I can to Ken, and then Ken will get an IRC direct message from me, and perhaps on a good day, Ken can then type back on directly to me on a one-to-one, perhaps, or perhaps not.
Yeah, we don't have private message bridging working yet on the IRC bridge.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
Public rooms.
so that one's not working, but you kind of get the idea. This group, which I'm just showing here on the in the VUC matrix, and there, in fact, there's Ken down there. So I can see Ken can see me, and all the people who are on the matrix at the moment. The people who've got pictures are those people who have got proper matrix profiles. The ones on IRC Jasny Jack, for example, is one that we don't know about, but we can still communicate. Is that about right, Matthew?
Yep, no, that sounds about right. So we're trying to work out what's going on with the video calling at the moment, which is frustrating because it's been working perfectly until literally a few minutes before we went on
Okay.
air. But nature of these things.
Yeah, let me explain what should happen. When I click on it, it should ring, and what will happen is it'll set up a one-to-one WebRTC session, so we can have a one-to-one voice and video conference.
Yeah,
and all of the call setup, all signaling for that is set up through the matrix.
Can you just try clicking on the invite at the top there? Because I've gone and started off a new.
In which one?
The top one.
Which
Can I
top
see my
one?
name there, James? You can see I tried to call you. Fourth one down.
1, 2, 3. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So let's try and call Randulo, shall we? See whether we can get that one to work. So I'm going to go to video call. I'm going to allow. There we go. We're ringing.
Okay, it's ringing here. What do I have to do to answer?
Top left,
Answer video call.
up here.
There we go. Allow. Okay, almost there. Oh shit! Let's try again. One more time. I hit deny because the mouse was hard to reach. Do it one more time.
I love these live, unscripted, unrehearsed demos. They're great.
Okay, answer call.
Call really rejected.
But I answered it.
You rejected me.
Should I read?
I'm going to try.
Wait,
I'm going to try one.
Try me.
I'm going to try once more, and I'm feeling a little bit rejected.
Okay, hold on. Here we go.
Don't reject me.
Yeah. Once you've denied media once in Chrome, it will deny.
Yeah,
it
well, I
more
tried to
until you refresh the tab.
You should mention that though, because that's what happened to mine. I just realised that.
So Bodhi, ring me. I haven't denied it.
Okay, let's try Mr. Panton. Here we go. We've got to set up a video link with somebody. And Tim loves dangerous demos.
So I've clicked accept, and it says connect.
Oh, here we go. It's looking good.
I haven't got any video.
Any
yet.
moment. Is it going to work?
No. It's not negotiated that somehow.
On this device. So yeah, something is around the tone service. The problem.
Oh, here it comes. Here it comes. Yes.
Wow.
So there we go.
So that's really weird. I can hear myself 4 or 5 times.
Can we switch to the actual screencast? Because the one thing we can't see here is the actual demo.
So what do you want me to do?
There we go. So there's the demo itself showing a WebRTC call. The quality is terrible because the Tim is supporting 2 upstreams now, but it is actually working. And if you go back, James, to the main system and try to accept my one, the problem was that I had also...
I got I've hung up on Tim.
Yep, so go with me now, and I think it will work because I've actually given Chrome permission to get at my camera. I have no idea how I hit deny at some point, but apparently I did.
Okay, here we go.
Dad.
Come in, Matrix headquarters.
So the call setup takes a very long time.
Apparently, although it should be almost instant. I have
And
everybody.
It's not going to work for us.
No, it clearly isn't. I'm not seeing the signaling coming in at all on my setup, which is depressing.
I'm going to hang up though. That one didn't quite work.
I think it's better.
So I had a.
So anybody else? What?
I have a question, which is actually I thought of a while ago, and I forgot to ask it, but I'm going to ask it now since I've unmuted. Which is, what about searchability? What's the overhead on searching back through? If I want to find out, what it was that Anthony said this morning in this chat, what do I have to do?
So that's an implementation detail, basically. The way in which I've been looking at doing it as a Skunkworks project on Synapse is to just submit all of the messages in the data store to Elasticsearch and farm it all off as to Elasticsearch, given that's a good JSON full text system. But if somebody implemented a different home server, I'm sure they would have a different way of going and implementing that.
So you don't see that as a core part of the protocol. You see that as something you layer on top in whatever way you choose to.
So we haven't specified the API for searching yet, and I suspect we will do that. It just isn't there in the current spec. But implementation-wise, it's entirely an exercise for the implementer. And perhaps they could do fun stuff like paginating history or backfill history from other servers to keep on going back. Because there's no obligation for you to keep all of history ever on your server. Have you lost me?
No.
Sorry. I didn't realize my microphone was live then, and I was just setting up a video call to GBUSA forever sip at getonsip.com, rather naughtily in the background and dangerously.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, search, we need to specify an API, and there are some interesting problems in how you go and paginate back in through the annals of history. But that's something we want to get right. I mean, it's something that Slack and other systems obviously do a good job of, and we want to as well. So
also, since you, one of you, I've lost track of who, has had their head in the Verto code as writing bridges in Verto. What was the experience there like? Was that satisfactory? Are there things we should know? I mean, apart from the fact you wrote it in Perl, which shocks me deeply.
So the story with the Verto bridge is that we wanted, obviously, to federate in from matrix into the actual conference here. And in fact, you can do this hopefully right now, although given the turn problems which we're seeing, I wouldn't count on it, by messaging the UC bot and hitting the microphone to do a voice call with him. And that then goes through to this little Perl, 200 lines of Perl throwaway script that goes and converts the matrix WebRTC signaling into the Verto signaling. Now, the FreeSWITCH guys turned up a few days ago on IRC, as Tony mentioned earlier, and asked what on earth we were doing and how the what the overlap was, I guess, between Matrix and Verto. And in some ways, I don't think there is that much overlap, because Matrix is an eventually consistent JSON database, and Verto is a JSON RPC protocol for signaling for VoIP. Both of them are extensible in different directions. But if anything, Matrix at its core is competing more with JSON RPC as a RPC mechanism with persistent semantics rather than the signaling layer. So for instance, you could layer Verto straight on top of Matrix by taking the existing RPC method invocations and throwing them out as JSON events over Matrix. Or alternatively, I'm sure you could go the other way around. So they're actually very similar. Mapping between the different RPC invocations is almost one-to-one. The biggest difference is that Matrix supports trickle ICE. So as you keep on getting more ICE candidates, and as you change networks and Chrome or Firefox keeps reporting new network conditions, then you can signal them across and keep the connection going to the best possible ability. Whereas it looks as if Verto at the moment isn't doing that. It's gone and separated the media out from or the media negotiation from the signaling, but it's not a free-form trickle ICE thing. And I guess the other difference is that we have some kind of published spec on Matrix, even though it's very much a work in progress, whereas Verto is, I guess, being led more on the implementation side of things. But it seems really cool. It was the first time that I'd looked at it properly, and it was easy to get the WebSockets-based JSON RPC, Verto talking to the simple HTTP gets and puts to the RESTful interface that Matrix presents.
That's the Matrix right there.
Yeah, that's the Matrix. I'm just trying to turn my full screen off, and there we go. Are you laughing about Emil?
Have we heard from Emil yet?
Yeah, Emil, you've got to say a few words. You can't just sit there laughing at me completely mucking up the dangerous demo.
I wasn't laughing at you mucking up anything. I'm just happy to be here with friends.
And drinks.
Yeah.
And drinks. Well, since it's my turn to say a few words. First of all, I think that Matthew and the rest of the team, and I'm sorry that I'm referring to them like that, because they're all great professionals, obviously. But I think you guys are doing some very smart things. I'm a big fan of federation in general. I think that's a problem that is worth trying. Even though, and I know that you referred to this in the beginning of the conference today. James asked that question, but I was occupied with a little biological maintenance of Emil v2.0. But anyways, in the past, people have taken at federation. It has worked only sometimes, like with email, and a number of times it hasn't really taken off. And I think that's a shame. I think that silos are against our common interest in a number of ways. It is not only about ideology. It just that makes a number of things less practical. It makes it harder for new entrants to join existing communities and to start offering services to a large majority. The way you could basically get a phone number today and start offering services, start doing your job over that phone number. It is, and you can open up new operators, basically, like we have some people on that call who have done that. The fact that you can't do this when you have an account on Skype or Facebook or Viber or WhatsApp or any of those, I think that's quite a shame. also, there's obviously the other part of everyone having to deal with multiple identities, but I don't think that's necessarily a big of an issue. Anyways, for a number of reasons, I think that dealing with federation is a very worthwhile prospect. As to the one thing that I find worrying is I don't think anyone knows exactly why federation hasn't taken off in the past. I don't think anyone has a clear answer for that. And I don't think there's a clearly defined problem to resolve. Like, we know that this is the thing that was wrong with federation before, and that's why it failed, and this is what we're fixing. So it's basically a trial and error thing. You know what, we'll do it this way, and now it will be easier, and now it will be better protected, and now it will be the security. And I think Matrix is trying to add a number of features to federation, everything that you've mentioned with the crypto stuff and redactability, and you've mentioned a number of other features that you can do with federation that was not necessarily possible with ZIP and XMPP. And I just hope that you guys have found the things that have prevented people from deploying federation before, and it's really the reason. And then now you manage to convince everyone that this is a worthwhile thing.
You know, Emil, I think a big part of this is the human factor side of it, and one of the reasons why. Well, there's no one reason why federation has failed so far, but what it needs is somebody who's just so focused and so determined to force it through. And before, we had kind of like team efforts to do federation, and they never really got there because there was no laser focus driving it forwards. And I think in the Matrix team, we're seeing that. I mean, this is manic levels of dedication and lack of sleep and all-night coding going on here. I'm excited about the levels of energy.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I think it stands a decent chance. I also think federation's a valuable thing to pursue, but I think the reason why federation tends to fail isn't often the technology; it's the legal infrastructure. For me, the reason that federation fails is that every single time I pick my landline up, it is a liar or a cheat who's calling me, and I have no way of knowing who they are. I have no way of stopping them, and there is no interest in my carrier in helping me with that. And the same's true for email. Most of my email is liars, thieves, and cheats. And that's the common factor in open federations, is that they tend to get taken over by the most base human motives. And unless you construct something that prevents that, you're lost, and the benefit goes down really fast.
I don't know.
I'll just finish. Final thought is that if you look at what WhatsApp did, is they haven't allowed open federation. They could perfectly easily have done it. They chose not to for exactly that reason, that they wanted to retain the value.
Do we know? Oh wait, that's a different reason though. Wanting to retain the value is a different reason.
No, the perceived value for me as a user is all about the fact that the signal to noise ratio is good.
Do you know that this was their reason? Because I think it might be very much related to control as well.
The two are two sides of the same coin, or at least to an extent they are. I can't tell you why I think this is the case, but I have reasonably good evidence that it is the case. I
don't want to find myself on the side defending how tough federation is, and because again, I'm very much convinced that this is something important for all of us. That said, so James, you said there haven't been teams in the past. The IETF tried to make SIP federated. Business models prevented it from becoming federated. I don't know if it's really about.
Yeah, the problem with the IETF is that it's a group of people, and all the really good stuff that tends to happen very quickly is led by individuals. Example: FreeSWITCH, led by Anthony. Without Anthony, there would have been no FreeSWITCH. So it needs individuals, personalities. It's like Jitsi. There wouldn't have been a Jitsi without this maniac Bulgarian chap pushing it.
So yeah, thanks for the compliment. But I mean, look, SIP failed because no one had a business incentive in federating, or at least not enough. I know a bunch of providers who actually do federate. Take IP, for example, or Riptel. Adrian, if Adrian Georgescu was here, he would tell you that they're federated with SIP to SIP info as well. And if so, from AG projects would here, who would tell you we don't see spam, phone spam as a problem because we don't have it. I don't necessarily agree with such an attitude as well, but I don't think that spam is necessarily a realized problem. And besides, you have XMPP that, while very far from what Matrix has to offer, it did offer you some ways of handling spam, of blacklisting domain certificates, of only accepting TLS configurations, TLS connections. So I think that the problem was there. It could very well be about the people. It could very well be about finding enough operators to adhere to the concept, to get a critical mass. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of the Matrix team, based on the short conversations that we've had with Mario. You guys seem to have a plan of trying to get on board a number of big players. And I think that as soon as you get critical mass there, it would become much easier. But there's also the story of Google joining XMPP, and it was suddenly possible to talk to hundreds of millions of people. And even before Google retracted from the XMPP Federation domain, XMPP still hadn't become this major federated mass that it could have been. Maybe it didn't have enough time to get there. Maybe more. Yeah. So I totally accept that. I think that can be the case.
You're absolutely right. And just because we failed in the past doesn't mean that we should give up.
I totally agree with that. I totally agree.
Anyway,
problem.
Matthew's champing at the bit.
I want to finish my sentence, please. Right.
Which one?
Okay.
James, finish. Let's get Matthew back in, but go ahead, Emil.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I totally agree. This is a problem that needs to be thought on. I think that you guys are doing an awesome job. I think that you're taking on a very hard problem. I think that you've done a lot of effort to make sure that you actually give yourselves all the chances that you need. I put all the chances on your side, and I sincerely wish you the best of luck in making this a success. I think you have everything it takes, and now you just need a little bit of luck.
And if I could just inject the obvious before Matthew takes it, which is that a lot of times you work towards something and there's a lot of things being tested and used and proven, and a lot of interesting other discoveries are made. And I think this is an example. I mean, I can't list them, but maybe Matthew can. But I think that things will be discovered and that are usable regardless of the big picture. So it's great to experiment, and it's great to push the envelope. Matthew, go ahead. You got about 20 questions you want to answer, so go for it.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of interesting points there, and thanks, Emil, for the vote of confidence on this. So I guess Tim's example is a great one of identity being a huge problem on email and the PSTN. And luckily, that is one where technology can help us, in that if you have strong cryptographic identity and webs of trust or other social constructs to go and track who the lies and the cheats are, then you can pretty much solve that. And in fact, there are even very simple solutions to spam, like requiring an an invitation handshake to communicate with anybody, that is actually quite effective. I mean, Skype doesn't have a huge spam problem, and that's based mainly off the fact that you have to handshake with anybody before you actually talk to them. But then obviously there are the economic considerations, the fact that companies get valued based on their own user base, and WhatsApp has $19 billion that says that you don't need to federate in order to commercially have success in a capitalist fashion. But it completely ignores the fact that the end user ends up in a horrible state with lots and lots of different applications, and all of their communication fragmented over those different silos. And you don't know which app to use to talk to people. Your history is lost. You have no portability or interoperability for different clients. You're forced to use other clients and install new apps to talk to different people. It's just a horrible mess. But the incumbents have no reason to fix it. And I think one of the reasons things failed in the past when there was the big XMPP federations, is that there wasn't enough of a, well, there wasn't enough incentive for those guys to actually make it successful. It was a long-term play, more of a sort of a secondary priority to make a go of it. And there were also technological limitations to what you could do at the time with XMPP to make it work. So hopefully we can address those by going and looking at the longer tail of participants. We can go and look at the emerging companies, the emerging startups, the smaller guys, the telco solutions perhaps as well, who haven't got critical mass yet, and go and glue them all together into one big meta silo, which then hopefully gradually grows to go and provide a substrate, a matrix, if you will, that the other big incumbents might eventually fit into. So rather than trying to glue together the big guys from the beginning, we're basically taking it off the radar. We're much more interested in growing the long tail to go and provide a decent community with Open Federation that eventually the big guys might feel customer pressure to be part of. And I don't think anyone else has really tried to do it that way around before. And finally, a huge thing that I think hindered XMPP's uptake for Open Federation was the lack of the idea of a killer app. So obviously there are some really nice XMPP clients out there. I hear that Jitsi is pretty good, and there's the entire Game and Pigeon and all of those clients, which are great. But they never ever got to the point where they were really competing with Viber or FaceTime or Skype or one of these very, very mass market direct-to-consumer end-user facing apps. And I think if we go and build an app like that, if somebody builds an app, and it probably won't be Matrix itself because we want to be more neutral, but if it comes to it, I'm sure we will put out a glossy app. But if somebody can provide something as successful as WhatsApp or Viber with some new features on top of it, then that would be the point where we really have critical mass. Google Talk could have been that for XMPP, but they just didn't sell the Open Federation in any useful way, and they didn't curate an open federated community. I guess that Apple still support XMPP in messages and iChat AV, but again, it was never supported enough. So that is basically our attempt to make Federation work this time.
Can I ask you one question on, so what do you think Google didn't do that it could have done?
Well, first of all, I guess they could have invested more in the trust issues that eventually led them to turn it off, in terms of the spam problems that really became the final straw to people injecting things in over Federation. And they could have...
Don't you think that this was just a perceived excuse, though?
I think it was affecting some people quite a lot. I mean, I know there are some people on the team who would be able to speak very well to this because they used to work on it. But from a more product perspective, if you want Open Federation, you need to make sure that Federation is featureful enough that it isn't a really lobotomized lowest common denominator language. Things like message history has to be built into it because consistent message history is table stakes nowadays for any app which has got multiple devices, multiple screens. You want them to be in sync. And the sort of feature profile that was given then for XMPP Federation was lower than that of the actual silos. And so there was always the feeling that you were kind of going into a second-class citizen when you talk to somebody outside. Now, it's always going to be true to some extent, but you can at least raise the baseline that is mandatory for Federation to try to make it a better experience. Obviously, that's the technological answer. Whatever reasons did the Google Federation thing not work? The fact that nobody else wanted to do it, that they were really bullying the other guys, as I understand it, to try to plug in via XMPP, and it just had too low a priority relative to the more directly revenue-generating things which those companies could do. And the fact that there just wasn't a mass market open federated community to participate in. You need to have grown something from the grassroots. You need the ARPANET, NSFNet, internet-style community to be out there which then forms the substrate to build on, rather than one great big existing silo trying to go and get everybody else to join it.
I've seen a bunch of people saying that they have to leave pretty soon, and that includes myself. The audio thing, we can keep audio bridges up if people want to chat, of course, and IRC is there. But for the video recording, let's get into any final questions, and otherwise we should go to reminding people how they can, well, first of all, matrix.org is a very simple thing to remember. So jump over there if you're interested in this topic, and I'm sure it's easy to contact the folks. After all, I was able to do it, so if if I can, anyone can. Any final questions? I'm looking at IRC. There's discussions going on, but I don't see any questions. Anyone on ZipDX? You guys know how to unmute with a *6 if you're dialed in directly, or anybody on the FreeSWITCH bridge. We have so many different people connected in so many different ways. I'm not sure, but I'm just talking, waiting for something to happen. So anyone, the moment of silence or not, nothing on IRC. In that case, Matthew, let's, what do you have to say in conclusion? As I said, matrix.org, easy to remember. Are you looking to connect to people? Anything you'd like to say now about final conclusion?
So it's very early days for us. We've only got about 400 or 500 people in the community right now. We desperately need to grow it. We need to get critical mass. We need to get companies using it. We want to get individuals, experts, universities, anybody to try to fire up a Synapse home server to federate in, use it as, well, compare it with your favorite XMPP product, compare it with IRC. It's a lot more IRC influenced, obviously, than XMPP in the end. And dog food it. See if it works. Go and submit bugs to us. Help us with the code, help us with the spec. Any feedback is very welcome. The entire project is completely open, and we really want contributions and participation from everybody. So please give it a go.
Okay, excellent. Anybody on the Jitsi panel who would like to make comments, please?
I have a very stupid and irritating comment, which is I couldn't find and Adrian Lugescu will enjoy this. I couldn't find the dial pad on the audio call. I tried bridging in from into the FreeSWITCH box and couldn't dial *6. So I couldn't.
The dial pad on what?
On Matrix. So if you go to Matrix and make a call.
I'm sorry, we ran out of time last night whilst doing the Verto bridge to implement the DTMF, and so that'll be an easy thing to add in. But it's not.
That's obviously the most important thing, DTMF.
Hey, by the way, I need to. Seeing Emil reminds me, I need to say that, Emil, we were having some trouble with the Jitsi bridging directly to ZipDX, so I called ZipDX, and I'm calling ZipDX, bridging the audio here locally on Jitsi, and not the bridge.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. You were having, and then it went blank. Then
oh my God! Well, that shows that there are problems.
You were having fun with Jitsi?
No, Jitsi didn't work when we called
out. And then it goes black. And I don't see what you're saying.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, the point is that I'm calling on Jitsi. We're talking on the Jitsi SIP client. So there you go.
Okay. That I heard. Okay,
I am bridging.
This is my censoring filter.
I am bridging through a mixer ZipDX. Anyway,
we'll check that out, Randy. Yeah, thanks for.
No, there's nothing to check out. It's probably some kind of propagation or network issue. I'm Aldine. Thank you for joining us. As I said, you folks, please keep in touch and don't hesitate to join anytime, even if you just have nothing to do at 6 o'clock. We do this every Friday. We'd love to have any of you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yep.
And 5 o'clock UK time, obviously.
And good luck, guys. You're doing a very impressive job. So good luck with that.
Thanks, Emil.
Thanks to Dave. Thanks to Matthew. Thank you very much. Michael, thank you. Andy, Tim, of course. Anthony. I'm missing one name here. I already thanked everybody. All right. Anyway, thank you, everybody. And Michael, go ahead and we can kill the video. And whoever else wants to keep going on audio for a while, you're welcome to do so. I'll leave the bridge up here, in fact, if people are talking. I don't have a problem with that.